Hello class, in this lesson we will learn about Abraham Lincoln. In the following slideshow, I will provide the basic lesson plans that are expected from you. I will also touch base on some important facts about President Lincoln. I've also provided a video clip I want you guys to watch referring to the Gettysburg's Address. As we go along in this lesson, we will dig deeper into certain topics here and there that I feel are important and need a little extra time. Remember, if you run into trouble, ask. I am here to help you in any way I can. Here are the list of assignments for this lesson. First, we're going to start off with the outline for your essay. Remember, the outline is for your benefit only. It's going to help you write the essay so much easier. Remember that when you have a strong thesis statement, this will allow you to have a strong paper, and the thesis statement comes the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. So if you share the rough draft document with me, I will be able to walk you through it and give you feedback as you're writing it. This is going to help you a lot when it comes to doing your final draft. And remember, it has to be 500 words. Use your 5-paragraph layout. You already have this in your files. Utilize it. Share with me early. I can only look and feedback on what I have. And for the project with this lesson, we're going to choose an event that interests you. So there's going to be a whole list of things that we'll come up with later on that you'll be able to choose from. And you can also just pick your own that's not on the list. So when we do the poster board, remember to be creative when making these posters. And there is a rubric that you'll need to follow for the grading. Lastly, you're going to present the poster to the class, and you're also at that time going to summarize your essay. This does not mean stand up there and read your essay word for word. This will only be about 6 to 8 sentences telling us about your paper. We have done a lot of summarizing with the Hunger Game books, so do not overthink this or panic through this. You can do it. If you have any questions, remember to ask. We're going to start the early years about Abraham Lincoln. He was born February 12, 1809 in Kentucky. His parents were Thomas and Nancy Lincoln. He did have a sister that later died during childbirth. When Abraham Lincoln was 7 years old, his family moved from Kentucky to Indiana, and shortly after his mother died. Abraham Lincoln was only 9 years old. Abraham would attend school irregularly throughout his young years. He actually only spent about 12 months going to school through his childhood, and he did not attend college as a young adult. Abraham loved to learn, and he often read books that he would borrow from neighboring farmers. His father, on the other hand, did not believe education was of high importance. This led to a difficult relationship with his father. In 1830, Abraham Lincoln moved to Illinois. He worked at several jobs, including worked at a store, and he did some surveying and also worked as a postmaster. He earned the name Honest Abe when he wrestled the town bully. He ran for the Illinois legislature in 1832 and he lost. And he ran again 2 years later and won from that point on. So he was in the Illinois legislative from the year 1834 to 1840. In 1839, while living in Springfield, Lincoln met Mary Todd. He married her 3 years later, and over 11 years they had 4 children. Robert was born in 1843. Eddie was born in 1846. William was born in 1850. And Thomas, which is known as Tad, was born in 1853. Unfortunately, Eddie died at the age of 4. It has been said that Mary Todd Lincoln never really recovered from the loss of her son. And during this time, he became a successful attorney. The family bought a home and they settled life in Springfield. In 1846, Lincoln ran for the United States of Representatives and he won. But in 1954, Lincoln made an unsuccessful bid for the U.S. Senate, but he did receive some support from the Republican vice presidential nomination in 1856. As you will notice here, there is an image that shows President Lincoln with his wife, Mary Todd, and 3 of the children. Remember that Eddie passed away at the age of 4. Abraham Lincoln became the 16th President of the United States, and he also faced some of the greatest international crises of any president. The fall of Fort Sumner, Lincoln decided to ask for 75,000 volunteers to serve for 3 months. Even against the backing of his cabinet members, the bickering among themselves, Lincoln stuck with his pro-Union policy for 4 hard years on the Civil War. And on January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect. This is Lincoln's declaration of freedom for all slaves in the area of the Confederacy not under the Union control. We will focus more on this in depth as we go into this unit. And in November 19th, 1863, President Lincoln gave his famous Gettysburg Address speech, which he dedicated the battlefield at Gettysburg to the soldiers who had perished. Here he called on the living to finish what the soldiers had died for. So please watch the YouTube video that I've included, and it'll give you more in detail of his address. It was a very short address, but it was very strong and informative and a very important part of history. When you think of Abraham Lincoln, people usually think of him freeing the slaves, which is a very important part that he accomplished. But there was other accomplishments that he also is known for. President Lincoln supported the Homestead Act. This act allowed the poor people in the East to gain land in the West as they crossed and were able to have their own homestead and start a life out in the West. Lincoln also signed the National Banking Act. This established a national currency and provided for the creation of national banks, meaning that one bank was able to attach to the others and keep it all on one uniform line. And the Transcontinental Railroad offered protection to the American industry. And all of these we're going to touch more on, and we're going to go in and learn more about each and every one of them and a few other things. So this is just an overlay on some of the accomplishments that Lincoln did besides slavery, which is what everyone thinks of when they hear about Abraham Lincoln. On April 9th, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Grant. 2 days later, outside the White House, President Lincoln addressed a crowd. Although talking about several different things, he stated that he would support the voting rights for the blacks. This infuriated several people within the crowd, and in the crowd there was one particular racist who was named John Wilkes Booth. On Friday, April 14th, 1865, the Lincolns attended a play at the Ford's Theater. During the performance, Booth snuck in and shot President Lincoln in the head. It happened at approximately 10:15 at night. President Lincoln was taken across the street and later where he died at 7:22 a.m. April 15th, 1865. President Lincoln was the first president of the United States to be assassinated. His body was taken by train back to Springfield and is now buried in the Lincoln Tomb.